Down, down, down. Would the fall never come to an end? I wonder how many miles I've fallen by this time, she said aloud. I must be getting somewhere near the center of the earth. Let me see. That would be 4,000 miles down, I think. For you see, Alice had learnt several things of this sort in her lessons in the schoolroom, and though this was not a very good opportunity for showing off her knowledge, as there was no one there to listen to her, still it was good practice to say it over. Yes, that's about the right distance, but then I wonder what latitude or longitude I've got to. Alice had no idea what latitude was or longitude either, but thought that they were very nice grand words to say. Presently she began again. I wonder if I shall fall right through the earth. How funny it'll seem to come out among the people that walk with their heads downward. The Antipodes, I think. She was rather glad there was no one listening this time, as it didn't sound at all the right word. But I shall have to ask them what the name of the country is, you know. Like, please, ma'am, is this New Zealand or Australia? And she tried to curtsy as she spoke. Fancy curtsying as you're falling through the air. Do you think you could manage it? And what an ignorant little girl she'll think me for asking. No, it'll never do to ask. Perhaps I shall see it written up somewhere. Close analysis or close reading is something that we have, one way or another, spent most of our school lives doing. It's a serious skill for AP, so I want to introduce you to it formally through a short Alice passage to give you a sense of what we might discover. What we wish to do is see what meanings can be discovered from the crafting of the passage. If the work is truly literary, then we know it was well crafted. But how was it crafted, and more important still, for what reason? To do this, we look for techniques that the writer uses to make meaning. AP Lang students will be fairly comfortable with this approach. You have sought rhetorical techniques such as appeals to authority and ethos for an entire year. ELA 11 students will be more comfortable in meeting literature, which the AP Lang students never really read that much of. So, I annotate. But what do I write? I think it's best to trust our reading. Start by writing what we notice. For instance, I see that there is a very specific narrator who seems at first to be in agreement with Alice. The narrator even speaks to the reader. Alice is doing math and geography, but her schooling is mostly incorrect. But she's falling, too, and that's an odd place to use school lessons like this. I mean, it's also odd to be worrying about manners or proper behavior. And she's also worried about here how she's going to appear. For that matter, it looks like the language here appears quite properly British, kind of old school. Victorian era writing, I mean, back in the 1800s, so that makes sense. She is of the upper class, it seems. I mean, she's well educated. I want to check into details. What details are shared? I would expect her to be afraid, right? Falling down a hole. But she's not. Here, that detail seems to be missing. And there are a few details about the fall itself, too. The time and the words are spent with her worries and anxieties. That's interesting. Let's look at imagery. She's got here an image of heads turned downward. She believes that she's heading to an upside-down world, a topsy-turvy place. She mixes up Antipodes, the name for Australia and New Zealand, with antipathies, and that means dislike or enemy. Okay, Alice is dumb. Also, she's worried that the place will not be friendly, perhaps. I'm thinking about Carol's word choice or diction here, antipathies, not just an accidental word that sounds the same but itself has meaning. Also, this is interesting, the etymology of Antipodes, the word that the Northern Hemisphere, especially the British, called New Zealand and Australia, it means opposite foot. So like on the other side of the planet, I guess. And of course, this imagery, to be able to curtsy in air, well, that's just impossible. So all this leaves me with questions. As I've noted these things, I wonder, is the narrator an admirer of Alice or is he mocking her? So far I can't tell, but he isn't neutral. Wonderland is ahead. Schooling, lessons, manners don't work here. It's an upside-down world that might be dangerous. And even if it isn't dangerous, let me try it that way, her schooling and lessons aren't learned. She doesn't know what lessons are important, and school doesn't seem to know. Alice has anxieties. This seems important, and she's caught up in appearances and sounding good, like nice grand words to say, but not in understanding what's really happening. For a preteen girl, that seems significant. Her fears seem as misplaced as her schooling. Why not fear falling? She even earlier puts away some jam while she's falling. Oh, and is it true that England and the upper class mannerisms in schooling don't really have meaning there? There's no use for them? That might actually be a theme idea. Once I've noted things, I've noticed some things, I've got some ideas of what their importance might be, their significance, then I look for patterns. I have to keep reading to watch for more of these clues and ideas to see if there is a pattern here. If there is, I'm on to what Carol is doing as a theme. And so there is a quick sample of close reading.